Welcome back. Mona, we've had you studying a subject here that is pretty painful, really, for a lot of women. We're seeing all these articles now being written around the country about the growing number of women who do not have children at any point in their life. Right. And that number seems to be going up every year, and sometimes dramatically. Basically, this happens in two circumstances. One, some women choose not to have children. Some women have this choice kind of foisted off on them. They're not able to get pregnant, and we're seeing those numbers rise dramatically. What are we finding about that? You've done some research into that subject.
Right. Well, I mean, actually, there's 4 big reasons why this happens, and they all fall into those 2 categories that you were talking about. The first one is that women are waiting much later in their reproductive lives to attempt even having a live birth. Now, that's not that they're not getting pregnant. It's just that they're not after a live birth at this point. So let's make that let's make this very clear.
It's and let's just make sure people understand the numbers here. The current statistics are that between 42 and 43% of all women in America of childbearing age have had at least one abortion.
Right.
And over 40% of all abortions done in America are subsequent abortions. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, on down the road.
That's right.
That's right.
According to the National Survey of Family Growth, which is a very large U.S. government survey that they do, fertility problems are more than 4 times as likely in women 35 to 44 than they are in the earliest reproductive ages, which is 15 to 24. And you hear me say 35 to 44. That's because 44 is pretty much as far as it goes. They've started doing recent studies. They've started releasing recent studies on this, and what they found is that fertility actually starts to drop a lot faster than they thought. Right. They thought it happened in the mid-30s. Actually, fertility starts to drop at about age 27.
Right.
So when I say 15 to 24, that's because that's pretty much your time frame. By the age of 37, I'm 36, so by the age of 37, steep decline. What happens is the eggs aren't good anymore.
Right.
And the chances of you having a live birth, even if you can get pregnant, the chances of you having a live birth drop dramatically.
Right.
And by 44, like I said, the end of your fertility, really, women aren't able to have children, really, after 44. Now, they can, but it won't be with their eggs. Right. The egg quality of women 44 or over is just terrible.
And now we're seeing all this medical research going into, scientific research going into helping women in their 50s get pregnant. You're thinking, God must be really laughing at us, looking down here saying, you're killing my babies by the millions when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to help 50 and 60-year-old women have babies. Have you people lost your minds? Well, the answer is, yeah, we have lost our minds.
Really. And just to show you, I mean, this is terrible, but the feminists in this country do not want women to know this because it breaks into their other line, which is that you're not defined by your uterus. I agree, you are not.
Right.
If you're a female, that is not what defines you.
Right.
But you can't ignore it either,
right.
And that's what they're trying to get us to do. And
and the other thing too is we've got to make the point here that if you look at the things that are driving the high number of women that can't have babies, if you trace those backwards, you'll see that there's tons of medical data out there that shows that can be directly linked to abortion.
Right. Yeah.
If you've had abortion early in your life, you are considerably more likely later in your life not to be able to have a baby.
And that's one of the things that we're going to touch on too. Just to let you know that the news media is not ignoring this issue. CBS News did something called the biological clock. This was back in August of 2003. And they started asking executives, professional women and men, said, when does fertility drop? You know what these people told them? These are educated people. Oh, 40? Well, 40? You don't think it's 27? No, 40. So they go to Harvard Business School and they start asking women, are you planning on having children? Oh, yeah, we're all planning on having children. Okay, so when do you plan on starting? Oh, about 40.
Right.
These are highly educated people,
right.
And yet they have taken the line, hook, line, and sinker that, oh, don't worry about it. This can always come later. You can have your career. You can have everything you want. Don't worry about this.
Well, I think, too, a disservice that the media is playing here. We have had these high-profile situations. I had a woman not long ago, it's 52 years old. They put that on television, and these women, like you're describing, look at that and say, oh, see, she's 52 and she had a baby.
Right.
What they don't realize is there might have been 1,000 52-year-old women they were trying to get pregnant, and only one of them took. And besides that, it might have cost $1 million to get that 52-year-old woman pregnant.
And it wasn't her eggs.
Right.
It's not really biologically her child. I mean, she could have just adopted a child at that rate.
Right. So these women are being deceived by the media's refusal to talk about this subject, and their further refusal to to talk about how it's linked to abortion, which, like I said, we're going to get to here in a moment.
Yeah. Another reason why women, there's not as many births and women aren't getting pregnant. Actually, from 1990 to 1999, the Center for Disease Control is reporting that there was 500,000 fewer pregnancies in this country.
Right.
That's a lot of pregnancies.
Right.
The next thing is there's just fewer women of childbearing age.
Right.
Well, why would that be, Mark?
Right.
When you kill a third of a generation, yeah, I guess you can expect fewer women of childbearing age.
And you know, something that's interesting about that particular issue as it relates to our population. You hear all these overpopulation crowd talking about how we've got to stem the population growth and so forth. If you take immigration out of the American equation, America is losing population right now.
Right.
We are not at replacement levels. And people say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, beyond just the moral issues and the theological issues associated with that, there is economic chaos on the horizon anytime you have a shrinking population like that.
Well, especially when you have a large aging population and you have a aging population, not Asian. I didn't want you to get confused there. Aging population and a very small replacement population for them because the workforce isn't there to support this group.
Right. And you can see that now. We're headed for a train wreck over Social Security when the baby boomers start retiring, and the people in our government have no interest in addressing this because they don't have a solution to it.
Well, there isn't a good solution.
I don't think there's a solution.
I don't either.
When the numbers are staggering, Mona, if you look at it. Now, I'm at the very beginning at the baby boomers. The baby boomers were from 46 to 64. I was born in 48. So I'm at the very beginning of it. When the people that were born in 1946 start retiring and are then able to draw Social Security, have you looked at the numbers? Baby boomers, and when the 46 group starts retiring, retire at the rate of $15,000 a day for 18 years.
Oh my!
Think about it. What is that going to do to the Social Security system when you have this shrinking pool of people who can pay in?
And what does it do to the workforce?
Right.
Where are all your services?
Right.
Oh my.
So you start looking at those numbers, it's scary.
Yeah.
And this is a subject that our government is totally ignoring, just will not look at it.
Gosh. Well, I mean, another reason why that there's fewer births is that more women are just choosing flat out not to have children.
Right.
And, okay, that's a very small percentage of the group, though.
Right.
Because what usually happens is as they get in their mid to late 30s, they decide, okay, now.
Right.
So then they fall back into that other category, is they thought they had time and they didn't.
And they didn't. Or an earlier abortion created an injury in them.
And that's the fourth reason.
Right.
Abortion complications can cause subfertility and infertility problems. The abortion industry claims, now this is their numbers, there's no way to quantify this, a 1% complication rate.
Right.
If you have 1.3 million abortions every year, you got 130,000 complications that they're admitting to.
Right.
All right, let's
start. By the way, and let's let people understand how restrictive their definition of a complication is. We've talked in this show before about little Christy Stiles in Colorado. Christy Stiles went in to have an abortion. They OD'd her on the anesthetic drug they gave her. She is now in a permanent vegetative state. By National Abortion Federation's definition, she is not a complication. She does not fit the definition of a complication, and yet, despite that, they still say a 1% rate, which is laughable. It's much higher than that.
But let's just take their 1%. Let's just start there. Let's base everything on their 1%, and let's see what we end up with. All right. The premise here is that the more dangerous that abortion is, in other words, in the beginning, let's say it doesn't hurt her right then, not like Christy, because, I mean, that was immediate. But let's say it doesn't hurt her right then, but the damage is done. The more dangerous childbirth is going to seem later when you compare it to abortion, because the abortion complication has to be immediate. They don't count the long-term stuff.
Right.
So you got an immediate complication that doesn't show, I mean, you got a long-term complication that doesn't show up. So abortion looks safe there. But when she goes and gets pregnant and actually wants to have a child, that's when those complications start happening, and those get added to the pregnancy data.
Well, this is really important that people understand this, and I wrote about this in line 5, because we stumbled across this this is a trick, a scam that the abortion industry and in collusion with our government, the CDC, plays on American people. But let's make sure people understand what we're talking about here. If you have an abortion And the uterine scarring that inevitably occurs with the use of instruments inside the uterus causes you in later years to have placenta previa, let's say, which means then you can get pregnant, you can't do a vaginal delivery, or let's say it causes you to be unable to get pregnant or whatever. That complication gets counted against childbirth. They don't link it back to the abortion. And then the abortion industry takes those statistics and comes out here and says, see, we tell you abortion is safer than childbirth. The problem that they're talking about was created by the abortion. And we're seeing this. Right. This was a scam. They were very clever.
It's a very, very smart thing to do. And it's hard to, how do you trace that back?
And the CDC played into this deal, and mainly because the abortion surveillance activities, the abortion surveillance branch at the CDC has always been run by practicing abortionists.
That's right, pro-aborts, absolutely.
I mean, in one instance, you had David Grimes, when he was running the abortion surveillance branch of the CDC, was a practicing abortionist at that time. He was moonlighting at an Atlanta abortion clinic and running the abortion surveillance branch at the CDC and perpetrating scams like this.
Right. Let me give you one final scam. One final scam is to say, well, all these problems, incompetence, cervix, premature delivery, all these are all caused by smoking. Well, let me tell you the trick there. Women who have abortions are more likely to smoke after the abortion. In other words, you could take a woman that delivers or a woman that doesn't get pregnant and put her here, and the woman that has the abortion is more likely after that abortion to start smoking. Well, smoking does cause a lot of these.
Right.
But so they say, well, you can't say abortion did that, smoking did that. The abortion caused the smoking.
Right. And that's what we've called here in the office the ABC thing.
Right.
The abortion industry will say, yes, A will cause B, and B will cause sterility, but A doesn't cause this. They're lying. They're putting that buffer in there so they have something else to blame it on, but we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that abortion is directly related to this sterility problem.
Right.
And this segment could be 3 hours long and we couldn't cover it all, but I think you did a good job there, Mona. I appreciate it.